Good day, friends. Again, a privilege chatting to you. We're still in lockdown stage 4. The president spoke to us last night, and of course, many of us is frustrated to be at home. I'm privileged to work. We were hoping that we will move to stage 3, that we can sell some wine. But of course, we're talking about a huge responsibility towards the health of people and the lives of people, if I can use that term. Today we're talking about, I want to briefly touch on stabilization, and I have 2 samples here in front of me, but I'm still working with the skeleton staff in the cellar, still replacing last year's wines with this year's wine. And it's again a fascinating process. And of course we're preparing wines for bottling, so we are allowed to bottle now, and towards the end of May we will start bottling some of our first white wines. So friends, this is our wine, a 2020 wine. Look in a tank. You can see it's completely hazy. The fermentation is finished. It's been on the lees for quite a while. And if you leave this bottle, if you can imagine this is a tank now, you will leave it all the haziness, that's yeast cells and small minute pieces of skin and even seeds will flock down to the bottom. And in the case of Sauvignon Blanc, we'll put a mixer in here via the valve and stir it up again to make sure the lees is in suspension, because that contributes to the mouthfeel and the richness of the wine. And of course, this one is just hand filtered this morning. And this one is of course familiar to all of you. You can see the greenish hue in it. That shows you it's a young wine. Now, of course, if you bottle this just without any stabilization, I want to chat to you about stabilization, then the wine, if there's a temperature variance, can become hazy. And if you put this in a fridge and take it out, it will make crystals here at the bottom, and that's basically acid and salts that precipitate. Now, how do we do this? To prevent that the wine become hazy, we prepare a bentonite. It's a clay. A day before sort of adding to the tank, and I think for many of you will find it weird to think that we add a neutral clay in the tank, but the clay bound with the haziness, the proteins, and will flock down to the bottom. And of course we send samples in advance to a lab, and they'll do on different in small cylinders, they will do experiments to see what is the right quantity of bentonite we need to prepare and add to the tank. And to prevent it from forming crystals at the bottom, we will put the wine down to -2, -3 degrees for 10, 12, 15 days. And then all this tartrates will precipitate on the inside of the tank. And that, of course, after that it will be filtered. We will check the levels and the chemical composition, and then the wine for the first time is ready to be bottled. So you can drink this, you can drink both wines. It's actually a wonderful drink. That's a few words on white wine stabilization. Of course, there's many different variances if the wine ferment in a barrel and spend quite a bit of time in a barrel, or for that matter in a tank at a low temperature. A lot of tartrates will precipitate, and in the case of a wine in a barrel, the tannins of the oak will actually find the wine, so the bentonite need to make sure the wine is protein stable will be much less. Our kitchen is busy preparing frozen food, and I was privileged to taste 1 or 2 of that servings, or it's really magnificent. And from next week onwards, it will start be distributed in this area first, and then later on we will roll it out to bigger areas. So that's quite exciting. Then a question that we ask many times, if you see an accolade on a bottle in the form of a sticker, people ask, what is your opinion about competitions? I've been involved in the past as the chairman for 5 years of Veritas, or the South African National Wine Show Association. So wine competitions is quite a talk about subject. There's people that don't enter for any competitions. There's people that enter for quite a few. There's around 20 competitions in South Africa. The 3 biggest is Veritas, it's all bottled wine shows. The Trophy Wine Show, Michelangelo, and then of course there's numerous varietal shows. So you must always ask the question, why do I compete in a competition? Is it first of all an ego thing? In our case it's definitely not. Do you want to put up your wine against people in the valley and judge your own ability to make wine? how good you are in the vineyards, how is this wine performing against a neighbor or people in your area or even areas quite a distance from here. Do you use the competition or the outcome of the competition as a sort of a launch of a new product, or do you use it for marketing and sales? And of course, each winery must ask that question for himself. No one is forced to enter for any competitions, but 20 competitions, and that's just in South Africa. And we sat down, we as a management of the Grendel, and sat down and decide we're going to very selectively select competitions that we will enter, and we've been successful in some of them, and of course you don't do well in all competitions, but for me it's quite important to do well in the Shiraz competition in Sauvignon Blanc, and of course Veritas that I told you that I've been involved on the management. And friends, people saying there's a lot of people that know the wine and score it high, and I've been involved in competitions for many years, and I've never been in a situation where we were asked to look for a specific style of wine and promote that, or score it low or score it high. I've never been in a competition that I got the impression that people know the wine, because it's going quite fast. Imagine you're sitting in a cubicle, 6 or 5 or 3 judges, so they're all experts. There's always a young one that's busy learning, and then you judge 60 to 80 wines a morning. I can't imagine that there's anything that's below the table, if I may use that term, that influence the outcome, because it goes so rapid, so quick, and there's very little discussions. And believe me or not, a good wine will always come out as being successful if you're in the show circuit, if I may use that term again. But I think the secret is to be selective and not to use any competition, all competitions, any or all competitions to sort of see how your wine is doing. There's quite a bit of cost involved, and you need to have, in some cases, you need a certain quantity of wine on your premises, because if your wine is successful, customers and like to come out and purchase some of the wine, and it's been frustrating that customers in the past drove out to your farm and they want to buy wine and it's not available. So please make sure you have some stock. Then there's questions around, what is the right time to pick grapes? And of course I can elaborate on that in a big way, but some people prefer to go out in the vineyard and just taste the grapes, look at the leaves, look at the growing patterns of the vineyard. Of course, another option is to analyze, to send somebody or yourself into the vineyard and draw samples, berries or clusters in the middle of the block or the top or certain rows each time. Bring it to the winery, crush that grapes fruit, put it through a strainer and sort of extract the juice and do a sugar, acid and pH, smell the juice, taste it. Some people just go for go out and taste the grapes and decide then what to pick. I think the answer is to have it in a combination of your analysis and tasting and experience, and your own taste buds to determine when to pick or not. What does the word racking mean is a question people ask. Now imagine, guys, this is a tank and all this sediment have settled to the bottom. There will be a valve right at the bottom and a valve about 25% higher and a door here. So the purpose of racking is to take the clear product from the sediment. Now the sediment can be a bentonite sediment, it can be tartrates, it can be just leaves that flock down. So you will pump the wine or move it from the top valve and then open the door and go inside with a racking hose and rack it off the sediment to the best of your ability, and not draw in or suck in some sediment, because the purpose of racking is to end up with a more clearer product. You will never get it as clear as this because this product was filtered. I hope that makes sense. The term extract, what does extract mean? And of course there's many different ways of explaining what an extract is, but if you can have a glass of wine, that's my explanation, if you can have a glass of wine and slap your finger and remove all the water out of it, let's say that's now in you have that ability, or there's a machine that do it, everything that stay behind, the alcohol, the acid, the color, all the finer, minute component that make a wine so unique, that is the extract. And we measure it, not what's left in the glass, but as a wine. And in the case of a white wine, we talk of a dry extract of 21. Some lighter wines or easier drinking wines, or wines that's made from high volume vineyards, high volume yields, high yields, will have extracts of 18 and 19. In the case of red wine, we talk of a good extract of 32, 33. In the case of Merlot, Pinot Noir, Cinsault, Grenache, is sort of traditionally lighter style wines that have extracts of 29, 30, Pinotage in some cases. So that means in my opinion, the complexity of the wine is for me a expression of extract, as simple as that. Well, then talking of a very controversial subject, alcohol-free wine. And guys, I'm not in a position to criticize any other style of wine. For me, it's a brand new concept. I tasted a few. I'm not overexcited about the fact of to have an alcohol-free wine. I think there's a place for it in the market. We did investigations into that. I went to see how they do it. And it's basically taking a wine and putting it through two processes. One is a cross-flow filtration, and the one is a cone spinning. The cone spinning, I think, is more used in the world. It's basically a centrifuge that remove all the alcohol out of the wine. Now, it also do a massive stripping exercise, and then you must rebuild the wine. And of course, if you have alcohol-free wine, I wonder a lot of people maybe don't know that you're not allowed to refer to it as a wine, of course, on the label. You're not allowed to refer to it as a Sauvignon Blanc or a Cabernet or a Merlot or any varietal Vitis vinifera names. You can just call it a specific area or a specific block of grapes, but never refer to it as a variety. So for me, it's still a new concept. As I'm saying, I'm not criticizing it, but fascinating to think of standing around with a glass of wine without alcohol, or a glass of a drink without alcohol. Friends, on www.thegrendel.co.za, you can still order wine. It's online. We will hold the wine for you. We'll make sure that as soon as we move to a certain level, and hopefully by the end of the month, we'll make sure you get the wine within days. I know a lot of people are anxious to get hold of a bottle of the Grendel wine. We are very happy about that, and sad in the sense that we can't send it to you now. And if there's any other subject or things you want us to talk about, or me to talk about, even if I don't know the subject very well, I'll do my necessary research to share it with you. It was a great honor and a privilege chatting to you, and stay safe at home. And like said for a few times now, I'm convinced there's light in the end of the tunnel. Bye.